Alrighty, so we are recording this time for real, hopefully. Today I have Kurt Springs on the show, who's a sci-fi author and a collegiate professional, and pretty excited. This is actually our second attempt at this. We did about a 45-minute podcast the other day and had some technical errors in the audio. So I would like to say it was the greatest podcast that we ever did, and I'm sorry that you missed it. So, um, with that being said, I'll let Kurt introduce himself and tell you what he's been working on.
Okay, well, uh, my name is Kurt Springs. I am by profession, an adjunct professor at three of the local two local community colleges and the local flagship university in my area, which is University of New Hampshire, Manchester. The other two are New Hampshire Technical Institute and Manchester Community College. I teach anthropology and archaeology. My actual training focused on the archaeology end of it. I have a PhD from the University of Buffalo and two master's degrees, one from the National University of Ireland in Galway, a Master of Literature and Archaeology, which is basically the Research MA, but they changed the name to differentiate it from the Taught MA that they were just bringing online. I've got a Master of Liberal Arts from the Harvard University Extension School, and my Bachelor of Arts was in math at St. Anselm College.
Right on.
I I'm a science fiction writer. I have written, well, there's two books that are published and one about to be published in October. The two are Price of Vengeance and Legacy of Valor. The third will be Promise of Mercy, which is continuing the Dreamscape Warrior series, which I like to refer to as paranormal military science fiction.
Paranormal military science fiction. I like that. um, if there was any, and maybe this isn't a fair question, but if there was any world that you could compare your world to give readers an idea of kind of, what type of thing they're jumping into, is there anything you could compare it to? Would that be fair?
Yeah, it's a fair question. It goes kind of along the lines of where I drew my inspiration from. So if your viewers have ever played the Halo universe games, they will probably recognize a great deal of the combat action that takes place in them. Uh, the other inspiration was Andrea Norton, the late Andrea Norton, I should say. She died in 2005. Her science fiction is kind of unique in a way. Maybe not for the day she started writing, but if you were to go back and read her works, well, a lot of it's like the old-fashioned spaceships having to land fins down. They're kind of pencil-shaped and so on. But ESP powers played a prominent role in her universe. And so many of my characters have, especially the hero of the story, Liam O'Connor, has ESP powers. He is a trained soldier. He's a marksman. He's been trained as a leader, and he's been training after the first book, sort of trading on the side as a shaman who help deal with errant spirits that have yet to pass on to the next stage in their existence.
That, Andrea Norton is not a author that I have really come across yet. Is there a particular work of hers that you would recommend?
She, if you like science fiction,
Yeah,
I'd say
you're
the
either
Forerunner series.
Foreigner series.
She wrote many different genres, some of which I couldn't even describe to you. But her most beloved series was actually her fantasy series, which is the Witch World series. But her Forerunner series, as well as several of other of her science fiction stories, dealt heavily with ESP. Uh, the Moon of Three Rings series, the Uncharted Stars, and there's a whole bunch of them.
Right.
A couple of those are actually individual books that are part of the series. I'm
Right.
trying to remember what the series themselves were called, but yeah, I started reading her in the 1980s, but I think she started writing in the 1930s or 40s.
Uh,
And she had a huge following.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, I'm pretty familiar with sci-fi, and for whatever reason, I'm drawing a blank there. But that's kind of cool because it gives me something to look into and trace down.
Yep,
Yeah, the
they're still available on Amazon. I think a lot of them actually are as ebooks, so
yeah, and then
certainly feel free to look those over.
right on. And then as far as the Halo universe stuff goes, is are you a fan of the video games particularly, or is it the
The
expanded
video
universe through
games,
the
I haven't really gotten into the expanded universe.
right?
My two favorites are the Reach, Halo Reach, and Halo 3 ODST.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a
I mean,
pretty
I don't dislike the Master Chief, but I have had much more fun in those.
right. I'm a pretty big Halo fanboy. Have been for a long time, and it's I've read a few of the books that are associated with the series and things like that, like the Follow Reach book
Mhm.
and stuff, and um, that's pretty much
I think I
it
read
as far as the books.
one
Yeah,
long ago. I was actually still living in Buffalo at the
yeah,
time, and it got packed away, and I couldn't even tell you what it was.
yeah, yeah. The Follow Reach book is really good, and then I never, but the games are my mainstay, and
Mhm.
they're fascinating from a lore perspective. And even though I have to admit, from game to game, I don't know what's going on. Sometimes I know, there's the Forerunners and stuff, and then there's the Flood, and there's all these elements and things, and but from
Yeah,
game to game, the plot itself can be kind of jumbled, but still, it's a fascinating world and things. So it's cool to hear somebody's taken, some inspiration from those. Is there any particular
yeah.
story elements or like elements of the Halo world that fascinate you in terms of like what about it from Halo
It,
has drawn you to it?
well, it kind of inspired, like I said, the military action end, of things. It The idea that there is a race that it predates
Yeah,
the current
yeah,
civilization is also, just it's just fascinating. Now, I've heard astronomers and astrophysicists argue about whether such a thing is even possible, and that's a lot of theoretical stuff, and they freely admit it.
right.
But but it makes, the idea that maybe millions, hundreds of thousands, or millions of years before this civilization, other people were hopping around the galaxy doing something, and some of them may have come from outside the galaxy.
Yeah, that's it's one of my favorite things to think about, and it appears in a lot. I can't name any off the top of my head. Maybe sort of, kind of Stargate, I guess. But
Mhm.
this idea that there's other human civilizations and the Earth is a seed planet and those kind of concepts, and who knows what other galaxies and places that our species may have populated without being in contact with one another. Sure, to the sheer
Well, the
vastness
thing
of it.
is, well, there are a couple of subspecies of humans in my universe. There's a lot of people that are maybe humanoid, but not human, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
They're not, the I've got one group that figures prominently is called the Gathawans, who are almost dead ringers for humans, except they've got black scales, kind of very fine ones on their face,
right,
which, because they live in a planet that orbits a red dwarf, that's how they get their fresh air and sunshine, is
right.
how one of them describes it. There's a gray skinned Taurians. They're the Severns, which are kind of a very bulky creature. The Mavorians are six-legged creatures that are some of the best pilots and navigators in the galaxy. And on Liam's adoptive home planet of Etrusky, there are creatures called bear lizards, which are everyone originally thought were just animals, and then they realized, quadrupeds though they are, they're highly intelligent telepaths with their own writing system.
Right. Uh, so as far as the so like you said, you were kind of inspired by like Halo, and you've taken inspirations from the Andrea Norton and stuff like that, and the actual characters in your world and stuff. Do you find that as a writer you spend more time in the world building elements or the plot elements? And do you have difficulty navigating that territory with because I know a lot of guys like to world build and stuff like that, and it can be hard to move the story. Do you find there to be a challenge that with sci-fi in particular?
challenge. Let's when my out beta readers look at my stuff, they usually ask for more details.
Yeah.
I tend to focus on the plotting element. So what I like to tell people is I have a character-driven plot, but a plot-driven story.
Right.
So the characters have to drive the plot, but the plot is very important to the storytelling. And then you just sort of fill in the world building as it, well, in my case, as it occurs to me.
Right.
Or someone says, well, what does this look like? It's like, gee, I don't know. So I have to kind of create something.
Yeah.
As there's a I think it was not Gene Roddenberry, William Shatner when he was doing the tech of Star Trek. When he's like, "Well, what scientific principles do we develop all this from?" And the guy goes, "What was that, Bill? We made it up. A little louder, please. We made it up.
Yeah.
There, are you happy now?" I love that one. It's
Right.
So yeah, I make it up.
Right.
The whole thing is, you got hard science fiction where they try as best they can to, the authors will try as best they can to follow Einstein's principles and everything they know about the universe.
Right.
So you have to deal with, okay, getting to a star isn't just across the street. You may take a long time, and could be some time dilation. Whereas in space opera, which is what I'm more akin to, well, we come up with things to, shall we say, get around Einstein's theories.
Right. Yeah. So
and actually have a story that makes sense in a timely fashion. Like it only takes 2 weeks to get from this planet to this planet using normal, someone called it technobabble type transportation systems that, or another person put it, it's all hand waved.
Right. Yeah. There's an opportunity for sci-fi and fantasy to kind of, intermingle a little bit.
I mean, Star Trek has the warp drive, and there's some principles behind that. There's the Star Wars made use of hyperspace. Silverberg used overdrive, and that was what they used specifically to go between galaxies.
Right. So yeah, that's fascinating stuff to kind of think about how world building, too much reality sometimes can bog down a story, but so it's got to be fantastical enough to. But there's other people out there that are super into that'll even look back at old Star Trek episodes and look at where they got it right and where they got it wrong, and that can be a fascinating thing all in itself, to see how inventive people want to be. The next question I got for you is kind of something on the last perfect version of this podcast that we talked about, kind of how you've been out on the grind and doing the the circuit in your local community and getting yourself out there and stuff. And one, I commend you for that because it can't be easy to go out there and to do that kind of work. And
the first hardest part is convincing the store to let you do a book signing there.
Right.
After that, getting there.
Right.
And back.
So is there anything in it for the store in particular when they get kind of a commission or anything, or are they just letting you use their space? Or
it usually is a 60-40, occasionally a 70-30 split. Author will get 60% of each book sold, and the store keeps 40%.
Right.
Some places will actually just rent you the table, and you just take your Square or PayPal little thing, and you do that and keep all your profits.
Right.
It depends on the store. It depends on, back when my books were originally published by my old publisher, you could go and the store would order the books, and then you'd get the royalty check from the publisher. Barnes and Noble stopped doing that simply because with the advent of print on demand, they have, according to one of the store community relations people, they've got a whole storeroom of print-on-demand books they can't give away. So it's basically, okay, the author will come in, do their event, and any books that don't get sold go with the author. And in many respects, that actually works out for both of us, because in the old system, any books that got returned, the author ate a portion of it. So it works out. It's the thing with the Barnes and Noble is there has to be someone there who can cash you out, and so you're not allowed. I used to be able to stay from open to close if I wanted to. Now it's not so much.
So with doing those and things like that, you had mentioned that there's a statistic which I was not able to verify yet. I'm gonna try, but you had mentioned that
Well,
there's some evidence to suggest that people who do go out there and physically promote their books have a little bit more success with sales than
yeah,
those who
that
don't.
was there was a there. The bookstore used to be called Toadstool Book. Well, there's actually three of them. I used to go to the one in Milford. That eventually moved to Nashua, which is another city in the state. And then there was a big shakeup, and they broke off from the other Toadstools and called themselves Ballon Books. Uh, that's neither here nor there. Most of your audience probably, unless they come from New Hampshire, wouldn't recognize any of it. But the science fiction group that used to meet that well, still meets there. Occasionally has authors come, very famous sci-fi authors, and someone, like I said, this is like third hand, so take it with a grain of salt. But the author was asked, "Do you make a lot of money at any of these book signings?" And he's like, "Well, not really. I mean, in fact, I'm lucky if I sell 20 books at one of these things," which shows you he's a pretty good author. Uh, However, statistically speaking, an author who does book signings will ultimately sell more books than an author who does not. That's pretty much you're getting out there, you're presenting yourself. Uh, they try to get you to bring some people to pull in some of your own people, but a lot of times it's just the people who happen to walk into the store for some other reason, and they see you there, and you start talking to them, and uh, some of them buy a book,
Yeah, that's
and that's a potential fan.
absolutely, yeah. It's good to know that is fruitful and that that there's value in doing the old school kind of getting out in the real world, promoting your stuff. So, um, have you obviously you got your stuff on Amazon and things like that, and people can
Yeah,
I've seen that you can buy your book there, and um,
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, Kobo, Google Books, and probably a few others.
so
Yeah, I could have chosen the KDP uh, format, but I just chose what they called wide, which meant I wanted my ebooks to go on whatever would accept an ebook because I know I like to spread the wealth around.
yeah,
So
so when you
if
as the
someone wants to use
author,
something else,
right? So when you as the author like sell a book online, um, you know, pretty much like when I'm looking at my YouTube views, it tells me, hey, it shows me all these graphs and things. Like, do you get that kind of data, or is that something that is available to you?
I
Or
get I the data I tend to look at is when I get my royalty statement, and that'll tell me, okay, this is how much is sold.
right?
Now the Amazon's statistics can be a little hard to locate, and I, I don't dislike Amazon, but it's quite frankly, I really don't think they should be the end all and be all of
Yeah,
whether an author lives or dies. So
right. There's something I'm seeing going on, and this is just an observation. I don't know if it's true, and hopefully none of the doesn't jeopardize my very lucrative career with Amazon in the future, which I don't. I'm kidding, but um, Amazon seems to be kind of taking over, and they have been for a long time, but they've been kind of taking over and cornering the whole book market. And it is cool because there's authors who are able to enter into um, a scene, if you will, that maybe didn't have access to one before, or just a way to put something out there that maybe it'll land. You never know. And the internet seems to be random with who it chooses to lift up sometimes, but it kind of levels the playing field to a degree. But
yep,
Amazon's also kind of taken over other elements of the other end of that, right? Where the promotion and the sales and the where you get your
Yeah.
books and things like that. And kind of like you said, they sort of cornered this market, and
Yeah.
it's kind of sad to
The
see,
places.
yeah, because it's become sort of homogeneous in that sense that everything is all like, oh, you're if you want a book, you're getting it from Amazon, and the options are fewer and fewer for the reader. I feel like, even though they have access to more content, so that's kind of a strange way of putting that, but it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I. And this is I'm not a big fan of government intervention in this, but they do have a monopoly on it,
Yeah.
and how it and I think it's the thing is I think a lot of other people, like for instance, you've heard of Sears and Roebuck, may they rest in peace.
Mm.
Uh, they just thought this was going to be a fad,
Yeah.
and by the time they realized they really needed to up their game on the internet, Amazon had already stolen their lunch.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not Amazon's fault. That's Sears's fault.
Yeah.
They
Absolutely.
if they had gotten a couple of good web designers together, they could have probably gotten in there, and Amazon would have had, at least in some parts of the worldwide market, had some competition.
Yeah. It's
Whereas it's unfortunately you want something, the first place you look is Amazon.
yeah, it's pretty similar to that the whole situation that happened with Netflix and Blockbuster, where Blockbuster didn't adapt. But I will say, with that being said, speaking of Amazon and Blockbuster and Netflix and things, oh, I meant Netflix and Blockbuster, sorry. Um, that there's kind of this sort of return of an interest in physical media, um,
Mm-hmm.
and people having a physical product because they're finding that online things, for instance, if you wanted to watch the original Star Wars, that you know came out on well, maybe not VHS, but whatever format it was
Well,
released on originally, after the theatrical
but
release.
I think it was actually Betamax.
Yeah. Um,
That
and
that that's dating myself.
right. But if that was the version of it you grew up with, you can't find that available online right now. I'm sure you could on some sort of torrent site or whatever, but that's no longer
Yeah.
available to you, right? It's changed. That's an edition that no longer exists online. So people are kind of discovering that, I think, and they're seeking out physical media again. Um, so I know Amazon with they have direct publishing and stuff like that, and direct print options and stuff, but um, it does make me wonder if indie presses and things like that kind of have a hidden chip in the game to where people are going to start seeking out more of a certain type of content that's less mainstream and stuff. I think there's a wave coming because people are noticing these trends where everything's the same, and you're getting this watered down promotable story and not necessarily a good story. And
Um, to put it politely, yes.
yeah, so uh,
Yeah. I'll leave the politics of that out of it.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just Hollywood is not turning out the things people really want to see. They're turning out what they think they should want to see. And Hollywood is now beginning to come to its senses. At least one would hope.
Alrighty. So, with that being said, I know you have a book signing coming up. If you'd like to tell us what day that is, I know it's a local event for you, but um,
For me, it's a local event.
right.
Right here in Manchester on the downtown area, which is basically Elm Street. There's a bookstore called the Bookery. This Saturday, I will be there from 9 to 7. Uh, it's a small bookstore, but it's a nice one. It used to have the Cat Alley Cafe in it up until very recently, and something happened with that. That space is now kind of closed, but they're trying to get another cafe in there. But if you're really looking for something and want to stop by, on the corner, right, kind of kitty quarter from where the store is, there's a place called the Mocha Pot, which makes some pretty good drinks of the espresso variety if you like those, and probably has good coffee and tea too if you like those too.
Right on. Yeah, the books and coffee thing seem to go hand in hand. My favorite local bookstore
Hmm.
is the coffee shop slash bookstore, and
Yeah,
you come for the coffee and then linger around and look at books and stuff, and
yeah,
it's a great
yeah.
combination.
That's the kind of that was kind of disturbing because I have a feeling a lot of the people who bought my books at some of the more successful events they were going to the cafe originally, and but we'll see.
Right on. Well, I wish you the best success that one could hope to obtain at your upcoming book signing and stuff. And before we depart for our second version of this podcast, if there's anything else you want to say about your book, and if you still have it handy, if you want to show it on the screen there, you feel more than welcome.
Yeah. Let's see. Where did I put them away after last time? Uh, next room over. I'll be right back.
Sure.
Okay. This is book one. Let me back up a little, and this is book two. The Legacy of Valor. Oops, get my fingers out of the off the title. It that takes place on a world very much like our moon of Titan. So you're fighting in an atmosphere that is mainly methane. Mix that with oxygen, and your life gets very interesting very fast.
Right on. So you're in some kind of explosive world there, more or less, is what you're saying. Uh,
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. So I definitely will be letting people know about your books and stuff and how I found you. And one, I appreciate the just that you're out there grinding and doing the legwork and things like that. And I know it can't be easy, um, but I'm excited to see where it goes for you. And I'll be following along, of course, on your journey. I'm got a few people who I think will definitely be interested in the type of book that you've written here. So um, I'll be spreading it via word of mouth as well. Um, and pretty much I'm super appreciative that you were willing to try this again after our technical difficulties the first time. Um,
It, technical difficulties are a fact of life. I work in a university where we use all kinds of technical stuff, and it's great when it works, and when it doesn't, your life just gets really complicated really fast.